And we're live. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
We're back at the BGA this week looking at character design. So we welcome Jordan, George, and Jamie. So today they're going to be telling us more about how they work on the designing of characters in the gaming industry and in the blockchain gaming more specifically. So we will have Louise introducing us to the BGA, the Blockchain Game Alliance, and then we'll get started with this week panel.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Serena. So, thank you very much for being here today. Of course, thank you, Jamie, Jordan, and George for being here with us. We have three industry leaders sharing their thoughts about character and art design for blockchain games, as Serena was introducing. So, a little bit about the BGA. The Blockchain Game Alliance is an organization committed to promoting blockchain within the game industry. Our goal is to spread awareness about blockchain technologies and encourage adoption by highlighting their potential to foster new ways to create, publish, play, and build strong communities around games. We're also strong advocates about diversity and more inclusivity of women in the industry. The BGA also provides an open forum for individuals and companies to share knowledge and collaborate, create common standards, establish best practices, and network. So these are some of our core activities: networking, researching and reporting, representing blockchain game companies, and advocating for blockchain within the game industry. Thank you very much to all our sponsors: AMD, Antler Interactive, Illuvium, One Way Block, Star Atlas, Gift Games, Chain Guards, Splinterlands, Ubisoft, Saya, Fear, Gameloft, DNA Cat, Starmon, Mirror World, Vulcan Verge, Dogami, Decimated, Non-Fungible Digital Entertainment Assets, Gamer Hash, Game Exchange, IOI, Triumph, Drops, Cartesi, Algorand, Tezos, Anarchy, Boson, Polygon, Chromia, Nexttype, Yoshi, NFTB, Sushi, Kardashian, Contribune, Animoca Brands, Dabraider, Galaxy Interactive, Consensus, Simplex, Polkadot, Dacoco, Hackermoon, and Bitcraft. And of course, thank you to all our members. A lot of companies that are among the games and gaming that are among games and gaming companies, Chains and Protocols, um, Developer Solutions, Esports, Press and Media, and many other sectors within the industry as well. These are some of the events that we usually organize or host along every month. Interviews with industry leaders and video games executives, collecting NFT series, women inclusive dedicated events, free speaking opportunities and conferences, workshops and thematics, new members presentations, and the demo day, which is every month. Well, let's get started with today's panel on character design. So, for the first question, as an introduction, I would like to know from Jamie, who's first in this list, what got you interested in the blockchain gaming sector? Jamie.
Well, hey, good morning. Thanks for having me here as well. I've been in the games industry for 22 years now. I've made games ever since I graduated from university. It's just been something that's been a huge part of my life. And what interested me in, and I almost reframed the question, is blockchain as a technology to bring into the world that I'd been in for all of my career. Was, I as a creative director, I tried to boil super complicated things down into something more simple. And blockchain is incredibly complicated but incredibly cool. And for me, what it allowed us to do as game designers and creatives was have something we never had before, which is kind of, I would refer to as digital provability. And that opens up a whole world of new concepts to play with. We can now have, I always refer to it as history in a video game, provable history. So if you go to a museum in real life and you go and look at, this is Napoleon's hat that he wore at this battle, it's cool. You believe it. You're in the museum. The museum lends that legitimacy. And for me, that's what blockchain allowed us to bring into our world. So for me, it wasn't about blockchain gaming, because I think gaming has been around for a long time, and gaming is going to always be around. The reason why using blockchain in your games is important is that it can add this whole layer of great design and depth to your game that we haven't been able to give gamers before. And to be able to now give gamers true ownership of everything that they spend their money on or put their time into, that's super important. So that paradigm shift for me was what brought me into it. And for us at Mythical and what we build with Blankos and all of the games that we're building, blockchain is almost an invisible part of the game. The game itself still has to stand up and be a great game. The blockchain component is about trust and giving players ownership, and that was really what shone the light for me.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Very, very inspiring for sure. And well, we've seen some news about your company. So that kind of is saying that if you feel as inspired as you are, Jamie, and probably everyone else in the company, people and gamers will actually feel it and know, and that drags people towards your game or your project itself, because probably we very instantly we see this passion, or we feel this passion, and it makes us go towards the game itself. So Jordan, same question: what got you interested in this sector?
So hello everyone. Jordan from Revomon. So to me, it's a matter of bringing several new advantages to the players. Um, I would mention that I used to be a gamer for years. So I spent thousands of hours in different games, collecting items, achieving quests, progressing in the game, because you like the game you are playing, so you would like to have a better hero, to progress well in the story, and etc. I feel that one of the key points here is giving the possibility to really own the item that you spend so many hours to get. So the concept with NFT is really something new in this area that really make valuable the time of the player spent in the game. So to me, that's one of the best key points that blockchain games solve in the current gaming industry. A second point would be all about the governance, letting people decide about the game development, the decision to take about the board members and so on. Just these two inputs allow a new generation of game that put the player at the center of the attention, and that's something missing in the classic industry. So there is really a game story decided by, let's say, some key members in the company, but we are quite missing that part of community aspect, where literally everyone with like a simple vote can bring an additional value. So to me, it's really what it's exciting for the gaming industry on blockchain.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And yeah, I definitely agree with you as well. It kind of makes us think differently. Well, not me, because I'm not a designer, but it makes people who design think differently, of course. And George, in your opinion, in your case, what are some references that inspire your design processes, and how do you adapt them to this industry? Oh, George, we can't hear you. I think you're in mute, probably. No.
Maybe you can try and remove your headset. Let's try. But yeah, what everyone said so far is super interesting. And what I appreciated that also Jamie mentioned is that blockchain doesn't really affect, the design of characters or the way we, create games. Because ultimately, these are all stories that we tend to, associate with. It's like watching a TV drama or reading a book. And it's fascinating how those structure have an impact on our emotions, right? And so I think gaming are an extension to what we live in real life, and blockchain has allowed us now to own those assets and to play with them. So to really amplify what those characters and emotions that we associate with those characters, relate with our physical life and in the virtual life. But George, let's see if we can hear from you.
No, not yet.
Try now? No. Maybe try and refresh the link on top, and we'll speak again in a few moments. Okay. We can continue with the questions. And also, just to tell everyone watching, since the numbers are growing, so thank you so much for being here with us, guys. If you do have questions for our speakers today, feel free just to type them in the chat, and we'll ask them during this live.
Awesome. Well, in the meantime, maybe we can go back to Jamie, and same question in this case. So what are your references? References for your team as a whole and the project itself, and how do you adapt them to match this industry?
We change our references depending on the project. We at Mythical, we're not just a Blankos company. We've got lots of different projects in the works and things that we'll announce later in the year and early next year. So I think if you boil it back, if you take that question again back to what references do you use to create good character design, it's really important to spend a bunch of time up front really defining what your game is, who it's for, and story, right? Story is a huge part of game design and character design. Making sure that you wrap your team in that world, immerse them in what that story is. And that really helps people start to be able to create other stories for the characters. I think when you're designing a character, whether it's for movies or for comics or for video games, starting with a story is super important. Starting with who they are is really important. What's their backstory? How did they get to the place that you're bringing them to? At the point that you reveal them to your audience, to your world, what have they been through to get there? And if you start to piece those things together first, you get much more rich characters out of the back end of the process. I think if you just go straight to, I'm going to start drawing a picture, very rarely will you get something that's super rich out and deep at the end of it. So, with us and Blankos, there's kind of the whole point of Blankos is bringing vinyl toys to life. So Blankos are in and of themselves just a 3D canvas that we wanted to give to other artists all around the world and have them build and interpret things on top of them. And where we've seen great success with Blankos is our characters that have more depth or tell more story. Those ones are the ones that we've seen great success with and great player attachment to. We just did a character called Pug Life a few months ago, and it's one of the early characters that was designed by Kronk. And Pug Life just looks like they've been through life. They're covered in tattoos. They've got you can see they tell this story, and that comes through because I know Kronk spent time really thinking about what that character was and what it was going to be in our world. So for me, again, I look at it as a project, as a creative outlet. The blockchain piece adds huge amount of value. It shouldn't change your process to designing great characters, though. Great characters start with great story.
Totally agree. Thank you, Jamie, for describing that process. I think it's essential when we are, imagining a new game or how we're going to bring characters to life. So, George, let's check with you if we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Is it?
Yes, loud and
yes,
clear.
finally.
Awesome.
Seems it was like
Welcome to the
a
room.
software error on the stream. But yeah, we're back.
No worries.
Technology.
No worries.
Well, we have a great question for you. So first of all, if you want to give a quick intro to who you are and what you do, and then the question for you will be what makes assets special, those characters. We know about blockchain and NFTs, but beyond that, what really makes it special?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here and finally hearing me. I'm George. I'm the Chief Design Officer of Voxel Architects. We've been in the space since like 2 years, and I was kind of like, to be honest, dragged into this blockchain gaming sector. I initially started with architecture and car design, so that's what I was studying. And during the COVID lockdown pandemic, I discovered like these virtual worlds that were emerging on the blockchain. I got like really fascinating by being able to own like this virtual piece of land and actually building on it. And I saw a need. I saw a need of building those structures in the metaverse because the metaverse really was empty back then. So we started to first let's build a dealership for. I was involved in crypto motors back then. I still am. But initially, our first build was crypto motors dealership. And long story short, from there we are here now, working in sandbox, building games because we really got drawn into this game engine really that everybody's talking about right now. I was playing like I used to be a gamer and I played a lot of like Minecraft, and sandbox was something very relatable to me, and being able to like create those games in Minecraft was simply amazing. Yeah, getting back to your question, can you repeat that again? So it was.
Sorry, just unmuting myself. Well, beyond the fact that those assets are made unique thanks to the, NFTs and blockchain technology, unique or in series, as a limited edition, so on. What makes it special when you are designing a character or an object for a game? What process do you undergo when you are,
Yes.
creating I don't want to call it asset because I know it associates a lot to blockchain games, but those characters, right? What makes it unique?
Yeah, so what we're doing really, it's basically art. It's basically we're putting a lot of thought and a lot of emotion, everything that we're doing, be it a character, be it a building, be it a game interaction. Really, when we started out with like just building structures in the metaverse, and we wanted to give these structures a personality. We wanted whenever we were speaking with someone that wants a structure built in the metaverse, we were usually giving them a list of questions, and we will basically find out like what would best suit them, what would best suit their vision. And then we would go on and based on this question design something around that, with that extra emotion added into it. So same goes for designing a character. When you're designing a character, you're looking at capturing that character personality. And there are so many factors to this, either by giving them like a special pose, giving them a special, a certain aspect, a certain movement that will ultimately determine that character personality. You are in the game and you are able to like, just like in real life, you look at someone and you are able to like just tell what that person is about from a first look, even though you don't know it in depth. That's what we're trying to do when we are designing our characters. So we're trying to create that immersive space. We are trying to initially bridge this gap between the real and the digital world, by creating these characters. Our model is basically right from the start, it was relatability. So when we started building, we wanted to bring the real into the digital space, and from this to be a slow transition to like a fully digital and crazy environment. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, that makes sense completely. And I think that's part of the research that normally designers go through when, applying this process in the designing of characters. Jordan, question for you, and then there's a couple of questions from the audience for Jamie. So we've been talking about what makes it unique when creating a character, and the differences between blockchain games and more traditional games. So looking into that more specifically, what do you think are the differences that can be named when we are creating characters for blockchain games specifically compared to more traditional gaming?
So I would say that there are no really huge differences in the process of creating a character, designing a character for blockchain game as a more traditional game. So I'm joining the Jamie's opinion as well on that topic. It's just that whenever you create a new world, a new game, you have first inspirations from other competitors, other games. You set up a universe in which you need to stick to while you are creating all the different characters, monsters, hero, and whatever. So, for example, I will take some examples at Revomon. We are a collectible monster game, Metaverse, in which like all the players can catch, train, battle with the Revomon they code. Whenever we add a new one, we are taking care about the let's say the word balancing. Like we have several typings, and whenever we add one, we take care that it's not like a water type, as we could have like plenty of them. We are trying to fit in the different maps and area the right amount of Revomon. So depending on the word. So we will set up a frame in which you will find some guidelines, but these guidelines, won't really change from a traditional game rather than a blockchain game. We will stick, for example, Revomon to beautiful colored monsters, to bold artistic lines, and we will stick to a cartoonized character model, because our references are more linked to Pokemon, Digimon, or that type of game, rather than I would say World of Warcraft or Counter-Strike or whatever. So it's just the area and the process to stick to the guidelines you have defined since the start.
Thank you for mentioning, about the differences, which are in fact similarities, with more traditional games. Let's go back to Jamie. So there's a question for you from Fadzero, who's been following lots of our live events. So thank you so much for coming back, Fadzero. But Jamie, love your work. Thanks for doing this. Would you consider mashing up Blankos as a desecration of the original artist's work, possibly reducing the value of the original artist's work? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we have a feature in Blankos which is called mashups, and the whole idea of mashups was to allow players to take something that was created a very specific way and give them some kind of light opportunities to create something new. So the process really is you take two of your Blankos that you collect, you take it into the junction, and you take it to the vendor blender, and you put these Blankos in, and the Blanko takes on the essence of the other Blanko. So you can, we will be allowing you to increase your utility value of a Blanko. So when you open a Blanko, you kind of choose a path for it, you choose a skill set for it, and you can train it up and you level it up to go through, and it does different things and you get different skills. So you're going to be able to do things with that. But what we do right now is we actually take the kind of artistic side of one of the other Blankos and bring that onto the original Blanko, and it changes the color palettes. And what's really cool about it is it gives you something new and unique, I have a low mint Boss Dino that I blended with a gold Billy Bones, and it's come out amazing. And there isn't another. Nobody else has done a blend that looks the same. Because the way we build the algorithm is we make it really difficult to repeat blends, or it might take a long time for somebody to come and repeat that blend. So I have this Boss Dino, which to your point, it's done by James Groman. Probably has more value. It's a low mint. It's one of one. There's nothing else out there like it. So that's kind of cool. But from a game kind of design point of view as well, not only every time someone mashes up a Blanko, they are essentially burning the original. So for those players that really give value to the original asset in a box, because all Blankos come boxed with a low mint, as we change other things, we're actually taking those originals out of that pool. So I don't know that it does reduce the value of the artist's work, and I think we're seeing a lot of interesting things happening in the blockchain game space where people are getting in, like, utility is super important with what we do, right? I think that's the other key thing with games that use blockchain as a technology, is having utility. And these are some of the early things we wanted to experiment with what utility could mean in a game that is, again, we focus Blankos totally on game first. The blockchain piece does what we've all kind of touched on, which rewards our players for the time they spend. It gives them ownership, and that just is a whole paradigm shift. But yeah, I mean, we kind of already do it for Zero Feet, to your question, and I don't believe it does reduce the value.
Interesting. Yes. I would agree to some extent. I think it's interesting to see how those things can merge and what that means for the economy of a game. There are a couple of questions in relation to VR for Jordan. So going back to you, just showing the two questions here on screen. Here we go. So do you feel that working in VR allows for more depth in character design, and how do you feel that correlates to a better and more immersive experience for the end user? Followed by these other question again around VR as a medium allows for greater UX with the character as opposed to other games. So do you think that VR can, facilitate that?
I would say that it depends, of course, of the category of games we are talking about. For example, boarding game could be like a simple 2D game or a 3D game. So it could vary about this. So I believe that VR is pushing the character, let's say, character animation modeling quite high, as we expect to get a huge immersion for the player at the end. That's the goal of VR at the end. So I think that the process of designing a character, as I see our designers working, is more depth rather than other game. Why? Because the person, the player, once he is connected in the game, he can turn around the character, go really close and back. So he need to feel that he's really in immersion in the world, and the character should be really optimized in order to fit the user requests. So I would say that, yeah, it's definitely maybe more complicated to develop the design part of a VR game rather than a more classic one. But well, there are still a common tasks on both aspects, from thinking the concept, so designing the concept, thinking about how the personality of the character should match the story or its attributes. It's still designing. It's not the same as just taking a pen and designing something. It's also imagination and that whole art that our artists should be in order to provide something in a good quality.
I kinda agree with Jordan on this one. Like, I feel like VR is like the ultimate end goal of this whole ride. I mean, the idea of the metaverse is having like this parallel universe to the real one that complements it. And while the technology is still not there yet, I feel like with the advancements in probably a couple of years, VR will pretty much become the standard. And again, it's like the end goal of the metaverse to have like this parallel, ultra immersive experience that you can totally detach from the real world by just putting this headset on. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah. And just
Yeah.
also to add something about your speech is that we face like a difficulty today with Revomon because we target, for example, the Oculus Quest users, so the full standalone device. But as you told, we reach the limit of the quality of textures, and we feel that to set that market in fully democratized to people and to let people access a nice quality of game, we would need to wait several years in order to have a device adapted for high quality textures, for example. I don't know if you have the same situation when you compare Oculus Quest or standalone VR devices user versus plugged hardware with a high capacity.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm a Quest user, and there's actually a question here to everyone, to anyone who wants to answer. So, what are your thoughts on Meta? I think that I kind of thought that the final idea is to rebrand the Oculus as Meta, and it's kind of mind blowing in a way. Like, hey, this is where this company wants to drag the metaverse into. So, what are your thoughts on this? Anyone can answer this one.
I mean, I think it's really early to speak about any thoughts since we don't have much information about that. But I think that the fact that big players like Facebook and Microsoft, for that matter, are trying to get into the space prove that this movement is real and it will inevitably come. I don't know if they will. I'm not sure if they mentioned blockchain or not into this. I mean, metaverse can really be anything, not only blockchain based. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts, Jamie and Jordan?
I think that the idea of the metaverse is such a hype word at the moment, and it worries me when one giant company with questionable morals decides that they want to try and own it, because that's the exact opposite of the point.
Yes, exactly. It defeats the purpose.
Yeah, it's not about one entity owning it. It's about creating a place where all of our games, characters, things, everything can come together and exist and in one place. And whether that's through a desktop device or VR, which I'm slightly dubious on VR still. So, and everyone's first toe in the water, what they're showing, I'm like, do I want to, is that the character that I want to represent myself in this space? Because everything I've seen so far from the people that are like, oh, we're going to do it, that's not what I want to be. It doesn't strike any interesting chord with me. And we saw one recently where nobody had, everyone was just a floating torso, and it just felt like, well, you've failed to solve a problem, so that was your solution. And so I don't know, nothing's giving me huge vibes about it at the moment, other than I think everyone's jumping on a buzzword and missing the point of what the metaverse really means.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. Like regarding the character, for example, this is why I like Sandbox that much, because it allows you to create your custom character and you can literally be anything that you want. Like just as a side note, guys, I was playing in Sandbox the past few days, and I said I can literally be an air conditioner, and I became an air conditioner walking through my building in Sandbox. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that one.
Yeah, pretty interesting. And on this note, Jordan, there's a question for you. So, with the new metaverse hype, do you see the opportunity to collaborate with other blockchain games to use their mascots to solidify your position in the metaverse?
Definitely, yes. That's part of our strategy, and we started to work on that. It just allow other non-metaverses project or other non-gaming project to join a gaming project by just translating their mascot into one of our Revomon character, of course, with still the frame and the different guidelines in order to stick and to be adapted to our world. But that's definitely something we are doing. And wait a bit of patience, and you will see some more announcements regarding that.
Awesome. Well, we cannot wait, and definitely everyone who's watching should check this out. Um, George, I have a question for you as well. So, what is your advice for aspiring artists within the blockchain gaming sector, of course?
My advice for aspiring artists would be to research a lot. That would be like the first thing, and the second thing would be to try out things. Uh, don't be stuck by what are like the norms and what you should do as an artist and ways you can sell your art. uh, the more you get into this, the more you research, the more option you see that you'll have. You don't try to take information from anybody else, but try to find it on your own. That would be like the best advice, and that this is what it worked for me in the end to get where I am here right now.
Awesome. Thank you. Jordan, do you have an advice for aspiring artists?
Uh, I would say ask as well to your friends, to your family, what if your creations are still something that how can I say are making people like interesting in what you are doing, because we can see different sides about these questions. It depends of what the artists are willing to do at the end, because you can simply do the creations that like respect what you want to do, or you can also work for a side project. But at the end, you need to gather the let's say all the inputs that make the people happy in the work. So I would say check with your friends, with your family, with the different people you are in touch with, what you are doing is still something that people are interested in, and then try as well. Try some new design. Not knock the door to other projects to see if your skills can be an additional value to the current and ongoing topics. There is a full world being created here, and I'm sure that the crest demand for that kind of missions will keep growing. Yeah.
If I might add to that, I get a lot of messages lately from architects who are trying to get into the space and who didn't even know that this job would exist, didn't know like if this thing was a real thing. So I think that's amazing that like people are really getting interested into this. And they're finding out that there are like so many new job opportunities that are open with the metaverse. I mean, you can be a traditional architect working in the real world, and then you can be a fully digital architect working in virtual world. There's nothing wrong about that. Many people associate like digital buildings and digital environments with just like a spare time, a spare time activity, which in fact it really is not. It's another whole universe, and people should accept it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And George, it kind of came to mind. I've actually told some people or talked about this, like, hey, there's actually people who are architecting buildings for the metaverse. Even my mom, I could see her in her eyes, her mind being blown away with the thought of it. Like, hey, there's actually people doing this, and it's only getting started, and we cannot wait to see what's happening next. So it's
Yeah,
definitely impressive, and it's definitely one of the things that kind of like I like the most about imagining what will come next with the metaverse. We're creating jobs, we're creating opportunities, we're building new things and new experiences. So yeah, sorry.
Following up from this question, because I think it's interesting to notice as well, what kind of challenges designers, game designers and character designers face these days, entering into this brand new industry. Do you think it's going to be hard for them to adapt, or you think it will be quite natural? So if somebody was in this industry but struggling to get in, what do you think a challenge could be, and how would you think this could be? How would you think people would overcome it? Jamie, maybe you.
Yeah, are you talking about? Are you trying to talk to kind of aspiring artists that are trying to come into the games industry, or are you talking about artists that already exist in the industry? I guess.
Yeah, no, I would say about people that are unfamiliar with this specific industry around blockchain games. They've been working in the gaming industry or creating stories and characters, but these could represent a challenge. Like they would have a background knowledge on the technology or not. Like, would that be a challenge, for example, at all?
No, it shouldn't be a challenge because it's the same thing. It's still the games industry. Like if I keep saying blockchain gaming, I think people are confusing it, and it isn't confusing. It's an incredible technology that we're adding to an industry that already exists. People have been building buildings in this industry for years. People have been building cars and characters for years. We've gone through from, when I started, I worked on a game called Colin McRae Rally. We were building cars with 400 polys, and we made it look great, and we had millions and millions of players. So, I think don't be afraid of it just because someone's saying blockchain sits in front of this word now. It's the same thing. All of the skills you've got are the same. The only thing that changes is players own what we are creating for them now, and whether they're paying for it with money or their time. That's the difference. So, really what it highlights is things like utility become more important. So like having it from a game designer perspective, it might be harder because those have to think on new paradigms and new core loops that really lean into utility and what does utility mean to a player and how do we really make sure that, all of these players that are coming and spending hours and hours and hours of time in our game, how do we make them rewarded and feel rewarded but from a character design and an artist point of view, there is no barrier. It's the same thing. Your skills are absolutely relevant. Everything you've already done. The most important thing from an artist and a creator is have a point of view. Spend time up front having a point of view on what it is you're building, what is the world you're building, what's the story that you're trying to tell. Those things are important whether your game has blockchain or not. And I would say, please don't be afraid that there's a barrier because there is no barrier.
Exactly. Yes, I think that's what we're trying to achieve as well here at the BGA. Try to communicate more about blockchain without, make it represent a barrier because it shouldn't be, as you said. But thank you for answering that question. As we are sort of heading to an end to this panel, there's something I would like to touch on because we've been talking about NFTs and economy in games, but how are we pricing those assets, those characters? How do you go about assigning a value to something that you create and import into a game? If you want to, maybe we can go around and everyone can discuss that briefly. Jordan, I see you nodding, so.
Yeah. So in our case, it's quite different than just designing a collection of NFT or whatever art and sell them. In the game we are creating, all is about let's say the progression and the chances to get something. So I will take a small example. If you are trying to hunt and to catch a shiny Revomon, that's the rarest rarity in the game. You will have one HUD on 8,000 to find one for the normal one. It can go up to 8 million one chance on 8 million to get one. So depending on that, you have purely the supply and demand working around. So if a player is willing to get that Revomon in the team in order to progress better in the game, in order to be, to fit the strategy he's setting up, he's willing to buy it. And with the supply and demand, so the number of shinies available on the market, if there is only one or several, it will fix a price. To give an average, for the shinies, it varies between $200 and several $1,000 at the moment. For a simple Revomon that you can have at the start of the game by just clicking a button, it was not, it's not expensive. It's like some cents to get, depending on the statistics. So it's really, in our case, a supply and demand method to fix the price.
Thank you. And George, what are your criteria when assigning a value to an asset?
I mean, this is a really, let's say, branching topic. I can speak, for example, about a project that was involved in like crypto motors, where the NFTs are pretty scarce, where we have like periodic drops of these cars. And really, how I would start to assign value to anything would be the amount of effort that we put into that object, into that asset, let's say. Let's not call it object. That would be like the first. The second thing would be rewarding the early adopters, meaning that at the start, maybe we'll have like lower prices for the people who are supporting our project. And then as we create more and more of these assets, the people who were in right from the start will get rewarded. I mean, these are like two main criteria that we use to determine the value. Another criteria would be, for example, the power of the car. Like if it's like a super fast racing car as opposed to a modest sedan that everybody can use on daily basis. That's also like a criteria of rarity. Obviously, the sport car would be more rarer than the other car. So these are like three main criteria. There are probably more, but it's like an entire branching discussion, as I said, pretty complex. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jamie, any thoughts on values for characters or assets in games?
Yeah, I think George is right. It's a complex topic at the moment. With Blankos, the way we come at it is, again, like traditional game first. So Blankos is free-to-play game. We have a whole party pass free-to-play track, and you can work your way through that and get Blankos and assets that are all NFTs for free. That's super important to us, that our players get to come in. By putting in time, they get to receive assets that have value. And we've seen some people make great money on the secondary marketplace already just by going through some of those things, which is great. And the secondary market, by the way, is great. But we should bear in mind that it's a secondary support piece to the game. And then we always aim to have what we would consider like a low price point Blanko, something that anyone coming into a free-to-play game around about $10 ish in that space, that they can come in and buy something, and that the earlier they get, the lower number mint they get. And we'll have some of those that we might have unlimited about. They're just on for a certain amount of time. Sometimes we'll do a low price point limited. And then, we work in Blankos. I don't know if everyone knows, but we work with artists all around the world. So, if you're into vinyl toys, if you're into sort of true vinyl toy art collection, you'll recognize a bunch of the people we're working with. So the point of Blankos was to bring artists in and give them another platform. So we price Blankos with certain artists at a price point that represents what they are in the real world, or what they would sell in the real world. Because with some of those, we're doing super low mints. We did a thing with Burberry recently, which is Burberry's first NFT. We're up from some nominations about crossover, which we're super stoked about. The point with Burberry was that's a super high-end brand in the real world. They wanted their first NFT to represent that. We wanted to do the same. So we spent a lot of time working with their creative team. Designing that Blanko, we created some new features that had never been on a Blanko before, such as it had a fixed fin on the back of the Blanko, the jetpack that came with it projected down onto the ground. So, you know, and that was quite a high price point on, but we sold out in less than a minute, I think, was how quickly we sold out on that. So with Blankos, everything's a little bit different. It really depends on who the artist is and you know, how we plan to sell it, whether it's, you know, low ment or low time.
Great. Thank you very much, Jamie. And well, we're almost running out of time. Time kind of flies. So for the last question, I would like to ask all of you as well. Well, 2021 has been quite a year for NFTs, for the NFT space. So what are your thoughts on what comes next for designers?
First, it was the era of the NFT. Now it's the era of the metaverse. I think this is to put it short. It's finally happening. I was thinking about this since 1 year ago when NFTs were starting to get traction. Lands were getting more and more scarce, more expensive, and now it's just the metaverse time. I think it just stole the thunder from the NFTs, to put it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would add as well that indeed the next step, and we are here today, it's the metaverses, but also all the side component of these, such as all the cosmetics. So yeah, so it's not only about designing characters; it could be like designing maps, buildings, characters, but as well wearables, cosmetics, and a ring, for example. A simple ring could be something really valuable for the designer, for the people. So I believe that even the well-known brands that we know here in the traditional clothes market will enter that in order to sell these digital goods, that digital pant or digital, I don't know, sweatshirt with the brand on it. So it's all about being also polyvalent now, not only on the character, but all the side aspect of it.
I probably have a slightly different view. I think if I'm answering the question, what is next? I completely agree that the metaverse is in the future, but I don't believe it's next. I think that there has to be a much greater adoption of the technology that we're all using first. You know, the industry, the idea of using blockchain in games is only 3 years old. It's barely begun, and I think we're nowhere near mass adoption yet. I think blockchain is crucial to NFT to the metaverse and having that ownership. I think that's going to be crucial. So I think in terms of next steps, it's going to be more and more people coming on board and diving into the world we're already in. You've already seen Ubisoft have talked about it a lot. EA announced recently that they see it as the future. So we've got a long way to go before we reach the metaverse, and I think that is going to we'll start to see that over the next few years as more traditional, wider games start to bring in blockchain and NFTs and use it and start to switch some of their play loops away from free to play and look more towards play to own. I think we've got to go through all of that first before we get anywhere near to the metaverse, personally.
Okay, well,
yeah, those are all very interesting views. I think, you know, the meta being announced recently has seen an impact on all the different metaverses and games recently, but we'll see once these will be, you know, more stable, what's going to happen next. But thank you so much, guys. It's been such an interesting conversation. Honestly, time has been flying, but I hope we can have a second session on this because it's super interesting. So once again, Jamie, Jordan, and George, thank you so much for being with us. And also thanks to the public for the great questions. There's actually a few that we haven't had a chance to answer. So I would love if you guys can take a look on the YouTube channel and get back to everyone that has asked a question today. But from the BGA, thank you so much, everybody. We'll get back on live stream next week Louise, what's planned for next week?
I think it's a gold member presentation, so stay tuned for further notice. And yeah, just follow us on social media to be updated on what comes next. And thank you very much for being here, Serena is saying. Thank you very much to Jamie, George, and Jordan as well. See you next time,
maybe
hopefully.
just a quick mention, if you guys are in
Yeah.
New York and are attending NFT New York, make sure to go and say hello to Sebastian. We have a BGA sponsoring the event alongside 3 members that would like you to get a ticket. So feel free to go and say hello. Otherwise, welcome everybody to the BGA once again, and see you again soon on this channel. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having us.
Bye bye.
See you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Thank you.
Bye.